Get in, lads. Welcome back to the Game of Football podcast. My name is Elijah, and today I'm going to be giving you guys my reaction to that Jamaica USA first leg game that happened last night. We did do a stream for that game, and it actually went very, very well. Thank you to all of you who were there and were chatting with us and interacting with us. It was awesome. We are going to be streaming the second leg and both legs of the Mexico-Honduras game, so make sure to subscribe and turn the notifications on if you haven't already, so you know when we go live and you can be a part of all that fun next week. But yes, we did do the stream. If you guys want to see our like reactions during the game, make sure to watch the replay on that stream. But I did want to give you guys a more in-depth and detailed reaction afterwards, having like a day to think about it. And yeah, before I get into it though, let us know in the comments down below your opinions on that game, whether that goes for that game or the second leg, anything. Let us know anything about the game, your thoughts on that. We're going to start with Jamaica, and then we'll talk about the USA, and then we'll talk about the next game after that. So let's start with Jamaica side of things, the Reggae Boyz side of things. Number one, obviously, the fan support there was awesome. There was the stadium. I've never seen that like bouncy, that jumping. It was amazing. We want to go so bad. One day in the next few years, we are going to go to Jamaica and going to go to a home game there. I want to be dancing. I want to be singing. I want to be, drumming with the band. It's going to be awesome. So the support was amazing. The stadium looked amazing. What didn't look amazing about the stadium, and you guys know, is the pitch. The pitch looked pretty bad. I don't know where the funds are for that. I don't know why it's so bad. Hopefully that gets fixed over the next couple of years or so pretty soon before they take on more serious World Cup qualifiers, because that is, one, a hazard for injuries, and two, it just doesn't look good for the JFF. So yeah, JFF, you really need to fix that as best you can. But more into the game. From the beginning, I didn't like the setup. The five at the back, I didn't think was the right thing to do in that game. I understand it though, because that has been like the go-to setup for the past couple years now at this point against big opponents. I mean, that's pretty much how they set up every Copa America game. I was kind of hoping that was going to get left behind once Heimer left and Steve McLaren came in, but it didn't. I think Jamaica gave the USA too much respect there. And decided to set up too defensively. And even then, with the five at the back, they conceded within the first 5 minutes of the game. So not a good setup personally. I do think it should start with out of four at the back with the next game, especially with Mason Holgate out. I don't think you can afford to play three center backs because you don't have Pinnock, you don't have Holgate anymore. I don't think you should. So I think you need to start with two center backs and two fullbacks. And that leads me to my second point, where it is a consistent problem with this team that they're way too stagnant in the beginning. It doesn't really matter who they play unless they know they're going to win. It's very, very stagnant in the beginning. Players standing around, players not making space, players not taking their space, players not tracking a lot of these defenders or a lot of these the players on the other team. The USA was able to pass through them very easily. The Jamaica set up way too wide in the beginning, and Jamaica and the USA was able to take advantage of how open it was in the middle. So that one I did not like to see. And like I said, it's been a consistent problem for Jamaica for a long time now. I'm really hoping that Steve really ingrains it in them that from the get-go, they have to be ready. They're not always ready. And that is always, 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 always a problem with this team, especially in the Copa America, which we saw. They weren't ready in the game against Mexico. They weren't ready in the beginning of the Ecuador game. It needs to get better. That can't be a problem to deal with this late into the Nations League. Ethan Pinnock not being there also was very obviously a huge miss. If he was there, I don't think Mason Holgate would have started, and as a result, he would have gotten a red card and probably would have defended and passed the ball a little bit better through Ethan Pinnock. So him not being there is a very clear sign that they needed him. I'm not saying that first goal might not have happened, but maybe that first goal might not have happened if Ethan Pinnock is there. I think he has experience to track that just a little more and to direct the back line a little bit more. But Mason Holgate did start instead, and he was very meh. Very meh. I mean, Andres was talking smack about him the whole game. I was talking smack about him towards the end of the game, and then he did get a second yellow card and got a red. And only his, I believe that was his second or third appearance for Jamaica. Like, come on, you can't be doing that, bro. You can't be doing that. It's one thing to have a bad game. It's another thing to end it with a red card and end it early. That's not good. So I think Deshaun Bernard should have started that game. Because Mason Holgate is out, I really do hope that Deshaun Bernard starts the next game instead. Because yeah, you can't be playing like that. I'm sorry, like you can't have a center back three and one of them is playing like Mason Holgate. No offense, but like so be it that he's gone. I do think Deshaun Bernard should have started. I do think he starts this next game. Again, it's a shame that Ethan Pinnock was not there, but you gotta adapt. Mason Holgate was not adapting to that. Time to move on, look somewhere else, which is unfortunate for Mason Holgate, but he still got a lot of time, but so be it. To move up in the pitch, though, the midfield was okay in the beginning. It was a pretty big problem in the beginning where, like I said, it was way too open for the USA to play through. Midfield was not there, and it's I just don't like how he settled the midfield. I don't like how Tyreek McGee didn't start that game. I do think he should have started the game. If you don't have Bobby Reed, you got to start Tyreek McGee. Otherwise, there was like not much creativity through the midfield. There was no build up through there. It didn't look that hot, to be honest. It didn't look that good. But once you brought on Hayden at halftime, once you brought on Tiger McGee a little after halftime, it did start to look a little bit better. They were stringing a few passes forward, and it looked pretty good. And that's what you kind of need to go for in the upcoming game. You can't rely on the long ball, which is what Jamaica has been trying to do for so long now, is just rely on the one ball forward and hope a player gets onto it. And it doesn't work, especially when you don't have Mike Antonio up front. It doesn't really work. So as a result, I think they saw that, and they started passing the ball amongst themselves. And it looked good. I mean, they were getting opportunities. There was like a good 15-minute stretch where Jamaica had control of the game and looked like they were going to score. Mason Holgate had an opportunity like right next to the goal that he should have put away. So they can't be continuing that style of play. It just doesn't work, especially against a quick and shifty and adaptable USA team who's going to recognize that and is going to, either allow it to happen because it's not working or shut it down. So that can't be happening. But yes, once Hayden came on, once McGee came on, it did start to look a little better. I do like Isaac Hayden. I think he looks like a natural out there, to be honest. And I think once we see him play more, I think he should start this next game. Once we see him play more, it's going to fit really well. It's going to improve the midfield a lot. And like I said, Tyreek McGee, you kind of have to start playing him. You have to start on this next game because otherwise there's not much creative, output there. Without Bobby Reed, you have to start Tyreek McGee. On the wing, Leon Bailey looked pretty decent. Can't complain. He grew into the game, but like he had some really good opportunities, some really good dribbles, some great ideas that maybe the other players were kind of not helping him with. I think it looked really good. Obviously, Jamaica, I wouldn't say they were missing him a whole lot, but it's a huge addition to have back on this team. It's a really big thing to have for these games, is that creativity and that experience. And he was fighting for the team. I mean, he got into a tussle with, was it Anthony? I think it was Anthony Robinson where he got a yellow card, but it looked good. There was fight there. I think you can tell it really aggravated the USA and inspired the Reggae Boyz, which is good. So I think Leon Bailey here has only been a plus so far. And then Shamar Nicholson up top looked pretty good. He had a really decent game. He got that penalty. Great moves to get into that spot, whether it was a penalty or not. Great moves to get there. Probably deserved a goal, to be honest. He probably deserved a goal and just never got one. But he looked pretty good in the absence of Mike Antonio. And Nicholson might have carried an knock during that game because there was a couple times where he had to go down. He looked pretty good. He wasn't here in the October international window because he wanted to get form back for his club that he can translate back to the team. And it seems like he's done that, which is good. On the left side, though, Damari Gray. I mean, I don't know. I don't know about Damari Gray. That game was a very lackluster game from Damari Gray. Let's be honest. There's a reason he got substituted at halftime, and for good reason. He wasn't doing much. He missed the penalty. You can miss the penalty, but if you're still providing stuff for the team, then fantastic. But he wasn't doing either. So yeah, I understandably take him out. I don't think he shouldn't start this next game. I really like how Steve started them and then brought Cephas on, and you could tell Cephas, the speed that Cephas had was very important to any kind of opportunities that they were getting attacking wise. He just didn't make the right decisions at the end, but still very, very good. I think you keep doing that same thing, and you kind of have to stick with Damari Gray. I wish Damari Gray played a little bit better. I hope he plays better against the USA in the second leg, but he didn't have that good of a game. And I'm not saying it's a trend with him. He does do great things for the team sometimes, but I would expect a player of his caliber to be a little bit more involved and productive with the team, if that makes sense. Yeah, I mean, and then obviously next game, apparently Ravel Morrison is going to be joining. We don't know if that's for sure or not. It's supposed to be for sure, but you don't know. I don't know. the players with the JFF are weird. They get called up and don't come. They don't get called up and come. It's weird. So Ravel Morrison is supposed to be here for that next game, which I like. I know a lot of you Reggae Boyz fans do want him back for these games, and have wanted him back for a while now. So him being here could be good for that midfield and could be very productive, but I guess we'll see. Depends on how Steve wants to play that. But that's really all I have for the Jamaican national team. Let me know in the comments down below your thoughts you have for their side of the game and for the next game. I will be reacting to as many as I can. But let's move on to the U.S. men's national team now. I do have some points for them as well. First of all, that win in Jamaica was very interesting in the fact that it brought up a lot of different stats and broke some records for the USA, which is kind of weird. You wouldn't think so. First of all, Pochettino, their newest manager, has equaled Greg Berhalter's total record of away wins in CONCACAF competitions with one. He tied Greg's 2 different stints with the U.S. men's national team. He tied his amount of road away wins with 1. It speaks for itself. I don't have to say anything more about that. It speaks for itself. And that was also their first shutout win in Jamaica since 1994. In 30 years, in 3 decades, that was their first shutout win in Jamaica. Granted, they don't play each other a whole lot, and they haven't played each other a whole lot in Jamaica since then, but it's just a funny stat. It's just a really, really funny stat. But as for this game, it was a scrappy win. I think that's the only way you can describe it. It was not pretty. It was not clean. It wasn't dominant, I wouldn't say, but it was a scrappy one and they got it, and that's what's important. They're unfortunate in the way that it's a two-leg game or a two-leg tie, so Jamaica still have a chance to come back, but to go up 1-0, still decent. Still decent. I think as a USA fan, USMNT players, I think still can be somewhat proud of that and move on. And you got the win. You got the job done. That's all that matters. Doesn't matter how it happened. All that matters is you got the job done and you didn't let the other team get anything going. And they don't have much momentum going into the next game. So still good on the USA for that. One thing I will say, though, is they can't let Jamaica bully them in the way they did in this game. Jamaica was very, very aggressive. They're a very physical team in comparison to a lot of the top national teams in Concacaf. And Jamaica were bullying the hell out of them. They were very rough, very aggressive. A lot of fouls being committed by both sides, but a lot by Jamaica as well. I do think USA was looking for a lot of those fouls, but that's beside the point. They still had to commit a lot of fouls against the USA. And what the USA's one of their biggest problems, in my opinion, is they get too frustrated. They get way too frustrated. It's, I don't want to say easy, but it is definitely a pretty viable option to piss them off by playing really aggressive, by committing a lot of fouls, tactical fouls, being extra aggressive on the ball. The USA gets annoyed at that. They can't always handle when that happens. And we see that when Pulisic is arguing with a ref, when the other players are arguing with the ref and just get extra physical and get into fights and whatnot. It's not bad for them necessarily, but sometimes it can be. And they get really aggressive and it gets in their heads. And that's how you beat the USA, is by getting in their heads and not letting them play their style of football, which is exactly what Jamaica was doing. Now, they still got the goal. Did they deserve it by that point? I don't know. Should that have happened? I don't know. Will that have happened against many other teams? I don't know. But the USA didn't have that many opportunities going forward. And that is, I would say, pretty down to Jamaica being pretty aggressive. So the USA can't let that happen. The USA kind of has to do it back, especially in this game. You also can't let Jamaica get into a rhythm for the second leg. So I would say do it back. Don't let it get to you before it gets too annoying. I mean, we saw that in the last game against Jamaica over in March. The USA almost couldn't get anything going to the 95th minute off an own goal because Jamaica was frustrating them after they went up. So they can't let that happen next time. Let's see if they do. I'm not quite sure. I do think they set up in a really, really good way in the beginning based off the players they had. A lot of players were missing, in particular Tim Weah, Josh Sargent, Folarin Balogun. They set up pretty well. I mean, like it was midfield galore for a while. I love the Tanner Tessman, Johnny Cardoso pivot. I don't think a lot of people were expecting that at all. And it turned out really well. Before Johnny Cardoso did have to leave as a precautionary substitution, it looked pretty good. I can't complain about it from a USA perspective. Yunus Musa on the right wing was probably the best option at the time without the likes of Tim Weah. Weston McKennie at the 10 spot, the cam spot. I mean, sure, that worked. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's not really anyone else. I know Brendan Aronson wasn't there, so that worked out fine. Everybody else was decent. Mark McKenzie, Tim Ream at that center back positions. I like Mark McKenzie starting. Did not have a bad game. I think really earns another shout at that spot moving out of the future. But Tim Ream, I'm sorry. Like, I love Tim Ream. I loved him in the World Cup. He might go down as a USMNT legend in some capacity, but it's time to go, man. Like it's time for Tim Ream to stop being a starter on this team. Like, and I get it, captain, all this stuff. You can bring him onto the roster, but I don't think he deserves to be starting, man. I don't think he should start the second game. He's a good defender. His ball distribution is pretty solid, but he's old. He's old, and it shows. It shows a lot. It shows a lot in a lot of scenarios, and it was showing in different parts against Jamaica there. And he had a fairly good game. I mean, he didn't have a bad game per se, but I think it's about time you start giving other people opportunities. So no more Tim Ream, but Mark McKenzie, I did like. I do hope he starts a little bit more. Ricardo Pepi also should be challenging for that number one spot at the striker position. I do think he can rival Folarin Balogun as the best number one, as best number 9. I'm sorry, in this USA team. So that getting the goal there. He was a man of the match in the end. I do think he deserves another shout. And with Josh Sargent and Folarin Balogun not being here, he, by default, had to get the start, and he scored a goal. So I do think it was a great game for him. I really hope he expands upon it in the future, not against Jamaica, but afterwards, But I do hope he gets a chance to expand upon that and continues to be a starter for the USMNT because I think he deserves it. The rumor right now is that he's being looked at by the likes of Liverpool and other top European teams. So there's no reason he doesn't deserve to be starting with this team more, and he showed it in that game. And then we can talk about Matt Turner to finish off the USMNT. I'm so conflicted on Matt Turner. I mean, Andres and I both were. Does he deserve to be the number one every game? I don't know. I really don't want to say yes, but at the same time, I don't know if I can say no. Uh, he gave up a penalty, which was debatable. I mean, you can argue if it was a penalty or not, but he gave up the penalty, but then he saved it. I don't know. He shoots himself in the foot and then has Wolverine's healing power. You know, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. His ball distribution is okay. It's not that great, to be honest. It is not that great. And there were definitely a few weird times where he came out of the box and went for the ball early, and it didn't not work out in his favor a lot of the times. But sometimes it was just like, okay, like settle down. You're doing too much. Relax. I'm still not sold on Matt Turner. Right? World Cup, fine. There's no one else I would have started in the World Cup. Now I'm kind of over him. I'm definitely over him, but I don't know if there's another American player that I can quite confidently say they deserve to be the number one yet. It's very similar to the Mexico goalkeeper situation that they have Malagón as the number one, which is fine, but they have the likes of Alex Padilla coming up, and maybe he should be getting way more opportunities and starting these games. You could say the same with maybe like Diego Coggin for the USA. Maybe he should be getting more opportunities over Matt Turner. I don't know. I'm not quite sold on him, but and you know, for Pochettino, I think Pochettino had a very fairly well managed game. You can't complain about him as a USA fan. He did solid. He set the team up right, made the right changes, didn't look that bad. Made the right substitution when he took Cardoso out. Solid, solid. I mean, he is showing how top quality of a manager he is with this team. So can't complain about that. But let's move on to the next game briefly before we end this video off. A lot of storylines here. Obviously, it was a very aggressive game. I expect next game to be very, very tense and aggressive. I do think it's going to be a lot of fouls, a lot of brutal tackles, a lot of maybe a couple fights, who knows? Just because this first game was so tense. They're going into the USA. The USA is going to feel a little bit overconfident because they're 1-0 up and they're in America. It's going to be interesting, but I can almost guarantee you it's going to be very, 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 very tense. Jamaica is really good away from home. In the Nations League so far, up until this point, they have been getting a lot of the results away from home. They tend to get draws, or if they lose, a lot of times it is at home, but they are very good away from home. So that is definitely a storyline to keep an eye out for, because being away from home in Nicaragua is different than being away from home in the USA. It is very, very different, but I don't know. I don't think it's not going to stop here. I definitely are still going to play very, very well away from home in the USA. But at the same time, the USA is also very good at home. There's a reason why Concacaf has made a lot of the last important games of the Concacaf tournaments in the USA, because they always want the USA to be at home, because the USA wins and brings them money. So the USA is really, really good at home as well. So really good away players, really good home players. I don't know who's going to come out on top at the end. USA obviously does have the advantage because they're 1-0 up, because they're at home. They're going to get some players back. I mean, they get Tim Weah will have finished his suspension from that game against Panama and Copa America, so he probably will be starting that game. They do have the advantage, but I don't know. For me, this Jamaica team just feels a little bit different. There's just something about this Jamaica team where I don't want to say overconfident, but this is the most hopeful I've been probably in the past year and a half of covering this team, right? So I think Jamaica just feel different right now. So that's why I really wouldn't count it out. I mean, the last time they went to the USA and played them, they almost won. You could argue should have won. I don't have a reason to believe it shouldn't happen again. So definitely something to keep an eye out for. It's going to be a great game. And like I said, we are going to be streaming it live for you guys, our watch along reaction. So if you guys are free and you guys want to hang out with us, make sure to find that link in our channel. It's going to be really fun. Last time we had a lot of people in our chat talking to us, and we were interacting with the chat pretty much the whole stream. It was amazing. So yeah, if you guys want to be a part of that, make sure to do that. I think we're gonna go live probably about 15-20 minutes before the game starts again. So make sure to be there, and make sure to subscribe now and turn notifications on if you haven't already. And then, of course, leave your comments down below on this video, your thoughts about that game, maybe your thoughts about next game as well. Otherwise, that's going to be it for me, guys. Make sure to follow us on social media as well. Follow me on social media. I tweet a lot now, and for both accounts. So make sure to find us on Twitter, and Instagram, and TikTok down below. And yeah, we'll see you guys in the next video or on that stream. Take it easy, guys.